Imagine this. You walk into a sophisticated gala event in the heart of Manhattan. The room is filled with the hum of clinking glasses, polite laughter, and the gentle rustle of designer evening gowns. Guests from different walks of life, top-tier executives, ambitious entrepreneurs, seasoned politicians, mingle gracefully, exchanging small talk and carefully chosen compliments. At first glance, everyone appears relaxed, confident, and genuinely interested in one another's stories. Yet, if you pause to observe more closely, you might sense a current of unspoken tension coursing beneath the refined chatter. Words are offered in measured doses. Half smiles are given in carefully timed intervals, and each handshake carries its own subtle agenda. In one corner, a woman stands surrounded by an eager audience. She speaks softly, each phrase carefully crafted, each smile disarming. The people around her seem captivated, as if pulled into her orbit by an invisible force. It's not merely charm, nor is it brute persuasion. Instead, it feels more like a dance, one in which she leads with a gentle yet certain hand. You can't help but wonder, is this manipulation? And if so, how is she so effortlessly good at it? In our culture, manipulation is often framed as something sinister or morally questionable. But strip away the moral judgment, and you discover that manipulation, like persuasion or influence, is a fundamental aspect of human interaction. We see it in marketing campaigns, political speeches, corporate negotiations, and even everyday friendships. Yet one enduring belief suggests that women might be better at it than men, possessing an innate knack for subtlety, empathy, and psychological nuance. Why might women excel at manipulation? Is it purely cultural conditioning? Or does biology also play a role? Could it be a combination of empathy, social intelligence, and centuries of navigating patriarchal norms, forcing women to master more indirect avenues of power? Today, we'll explore these questions through philosophy, psychology, historical examples, and modern social dynamics to uncover the profound reasons why women are often seen as the ultimate maestros of manipulation. Prepare yourself for a journey that may challenge your assumptions about gender, power, and influence. By the end of this exploration, you may find that women's adeptness at manipulation reveals not only hidden truths about social dynamics, but also fundamental insights into human nature itself. And, just like our initial observation at that posh gala, you'll discover a final revelation that could transform how you perceive the art of influence in your own life. Before we delve into why women might outmaneuver men in the fine art of manipulation, let's lay down a clear definition. Manipulation, in its simplest form, is the strategic shaping of someone's perception or behavior, often without them being fully aware of the guiding hand behind their decisions. The immediate connotation is typically negative. We imagine puppet strings and underhanded tactics, yet if we broaden the lens, manipulation can be neutral, even beneficial, depending on the intent and context. Positive manipulation, negotiating peace treaties, de-escalating conflicts, or persuading a loved one to adopt healthier habits, can all be forms of manipulation with altruistic motives. Negative manipulation, gaslighting, emotional blackmail, and strategic deceit. These are forms that often destroy trust and psychological well-being. In everyday life, the line between positive and negative manipulation can be hazy, but for our purposes, we're primarily talking about the refined social maneuvering that influences outcomes, sometimes at the expense of direct confrontation. And in a world historically dominated by brute strength, it isn't surprising that women might have evolved or learned more artful methods of achieving their goals. One theory suggests that women's superiority in manipulation stems from evolutionary pressures. Traditionally, men had certain physical advantages that allowed them to compete for resources or status more directly through displays of strength, territorial aggression, and overt dominance. Women, on the other hand, often had to manage risks and resources in more subtle ways, ensuring both their survival and that of their offspring. evolutionary psychologists propose that women who developed keen social intelligence and skillful forms of indirect influence were more likely to secure alliances and protect themselves and their children from overt aggression. If you can't rely on sheer physical power, you might. Forge alliances through empathy and rapport. Learn to read emotions quickly to detect threats. Influence community decisions behind the scenes, rather than confronting authority directly. This combination of heightened emotional awareness and strategic thinking likely became encoded, to some extent, in social learning, and perhaps even in subtle biological predispositions. The female brain, some argue, evolved to excel at communication cues, empathy, and reading body language, forming the perfect foundation for sophisticated manipulation strategies. At the heart of many successful manipulations lies empathy, the ability to comprehend and share another person's emotional state. Where men are often socialized to adopt more direct or confrontational tactics, women tend to develop deeper emotional intelligence, allowing them to navigate tricky interpersonal waters. Imagine a workplace scenario. A manager, who happens to be a woman, wants a project completed without causing open conflict or damaging morale. Rather than issuing orders, she might approach employees individually, reading their emotional states and adjusting her tone to fit each person. The employees might walk away feeling heard and motivated, possibly unaware that they've been strategically influenced to work harder. This form of kind manipulation is rooted in empathy, not brute authority, and it can yield tremendous results with minimal resistance. Niccolò Machiavelli argued that leaders must sometimes employ cunning to maintain control and achieve political ends. Traditionally, Machiavellian strategies, like feigning loyalty or using flattery, have been cast in a masculine mold. However, if we view Machiavelli's thoughts through the lens of female socialization, we might see that women had to master forms of subtlety and deception even more acutely, precisely because direct confrontation historically wasn't a safe path. Machiavelli might have praised women for using soft power effectively. In a world dominated by men with swords, economic might, or political power, the cunning application of social intelligence could be the difference between survival and downfall. Friedrich Nietzsche, known for exploring power dynamics and will to power, could shed light on the female advantage in manipulation. While Nietzsche wrote extensively about the Übermensch and the drive to dominate one's environment, one might argue that women, traditionally blocked from overt displays of power, found alternative means of exerting their will. Nietzsche viewed human interactions as a constant flux of dominance and submission, where illusions serve as tools to maintain or elevate one's status. Women, more often forced to navigate behind the scenes, learned how illusions, hints, and half-truths could shape the environment without open confrontation. Jean-Paul Sartre believed that human beings are radically free, yet burdened by the responsibility of that freedom. In social contexts, Sartre argued, people wear masks to cope with the gaze of others. For women, historically judged on appearance and submissiveness, wearing such masks became almost a second nature. They learned to present themselves in ways that conformed to societal expectations, while still safeguarding their own inner truths. In a sense, women's social conditioning prepared them to manipulate surface appearances, maintaining one image outwardly while harboring their own thoughts and goals inwardly. In Sartre's existential framework, this is a mechanism of freedom, the awareness that one is not simply an object in someone else's eyes, but a subject shaping reality through carefully chosen acts. Recent psychological studies have found that, on average, women score higher in reading facial expressions and picking up on subtle emotional cues. This skill is invaluable for manipulation because it allows the manipulator to adjust their approach instantaneously. If a target shows signs of skepticism, the manipulator can swiftly change their tack, perhaps shifting from flattery to self-deprecation. Emotional labor is another concept frequently associated with women in professional settings. Women often handle the feeling work in workplaces, soothing tensions, mediating conflicts, and maintaining group harmony. While this can be taxing, it also provides an environment in which subtle influence flourishes, as the emotional laborer becomes a key figure in shaping team morale and decision-making. Some neuroscientists suggest that hormones like oxytocin, often more prevalent in women, foster bonding and empathy. Oxytocin is released during close contact, childbirth, and even during positive social interactions, enhancing feelings of trust and closeness. This biological predisposition towards nurturing social bonds might paradoxically give women greater leverage in social scenarios, as they can sense emotional undercurrents more keenly. Additionally, brain imaging studies occasionally show heightened activation in regions associated with social cognition and emotional processing in women compared to men. If you can better read a room, you can better steer it. So, in certain contexts, women's brains might provide them with an advantage in subtle social maneuvering. History brims with stories of women who excelled in manipulation. Cleopatra, for instance, famously swayed Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, not just through her reputed beauty, but through sharp intellect, political acumen, and theatrical flair. Think about her being smuggled into Caesar's chambers in a rolled-up carpet. Likewise, Queen Elizabeth I of England navigated a realm of male advisors and potential foes through elaborate courtly performances, carefully orchestrated flirtations, and skillful alliances. Though she ruled an empire, her strategies often involved nuance rather than brute command. In popular culture, the trope of the femme fatale, from classic film noir to modern cinema, portrays women using cunning and allure to entrap men. While these portrayals can be exaggerated and sometimes misogynistic, they also reflect a cultural acknowledgement that female manipulation is a recognized, enduring archetype. Historically, women faced systemic limitations on property rights, access to education, and direct political power. When you can't openly claim power, you develop covert channels to gain influence. Marriages were strategic partnerships. Social gatherings became breeding grounds for alliances, and ladies' gossip could shape reputations and policies in ways men often underestimated. Even in 19th century salons, women who hosted gatherings essentially wielded the power to shape intellectual discourse. Their curated guest lists, topic choices, and social cues determined who gained favor and who left empty-handed. This environment honed a strategic intelligence, a manipulative flair that could shift fortunes without a single sword drawn. Let's transition from theory to practical manifestations of this skill set. Below are some common manipulative techniques that many observers and social scientists argue women often handle more deftly than men. Women, having finely attuned empathy, may employ emotional mirroring to build rapport by subtly reflecting the body language, tone, and expressions of the other person. They foster a sense of comfort and belonging. This technique is potent because the person being mirrored rarely realizes what's happening. They simply feel understood and, consequently, more open to influence. In certain social or professional contexts, a woman might feign mild insecurity or self-doubt to elicit support or lower an opponent's guard. I'm not sure if my idea is all that great, but can precede a brilliantly orchestrated plan. The other party, believing they hold the upper hand, may let their defenses down, making them more susceptible to being guided in a chosen direction. Sharing personal information can breed trust, but how much is revealed, and when it's revealed, can be meticulously calculated. Women skilled in manipulation might disclose just enough vulnerability to draw someone closer, then hold back further details until they see how the other party reacts. It's like playing poker with carefully selected tells, ensuring the other side invests emotionally. Where men might escalate conflicts with overt aggression or raised voices, Women are sometimes more adept at the silent treatment. This can be psychologically taxing on the recipient, who might scramble to restore harmony, unconsciously doing the manipulator's bidding in the process. Passive strategies like playing the victim or strategic tears can also turn the tide of a confrontation without a single harsh word. One under-discussed form of manipulation is relational aggression, wherein social bonds and reputations are used as tools. Exclusion, rumors, and subtle sabotage can devastate a rival's social standing. While men might lean toward direct confrontation, relational aggression thrives in indirect but deeply damaging attacks, an arena some studies suggest. Women navigate more fluently from a young age. Think of classic teenage cliques. No exploration of manipulation would be complete without addressing the ethical dimension. Some might argue that if women are adept at manipulation, this skill can easily cross moral boundaries. But is all manipulation inherently unethical? Or does it become problematic only when it's used to deceive or harm? Persuasion is typically seen as open and transparent, inviting a fair assessment of ideas. Manipulation often implies hidden motives or stealth tactics. Women's adeptness might lie in that gray zone. Emotionally intelligent persuasion that can veer into manipulation when the intentions are obscured. A woman negotiating her salary might skillfully highlight her accomplishments while also appealing to her boss's empathy, certainly a form of manipulation, but arguably justified by systemic pay gaps. Many of history's women used manipulation for positive social change. Consider activists who quietly lobbied powerful men to pass reforms, or leaders who used their influence behind the scenes to avert wars or improve human rights. When direct authority wasn't an option, subtle influence became a lifeline for progressive causes. Today's digital age has opened up new frontiers for manipulation. Social media platforms enable curation of one's personal brand to an extraordinary degree. Women, often more adept at aesthetic and emotional presentation, have thrived in these spaces. Influencers building massive followings by appealing to lifestyle aspirations, beauty ideals, or motivational content. Here, manipulation manifests as filters, carefully staged photos, and curated authenticity. Followers may believe they're witnessing genuine lives, but each post can be a meticulously orchestrated act of influence, shaped by brand deals and social strategies. Social media also amplifies relational aggression. A subtle post aimed at undermining someone, a carefully timed unfollow, or cryptic references can sow discord across entire friend circles or fan bases. This brand of digital manipulation might seem petty, but it can have severe consequences on reputation, mental health, and interpersonal relationships. It's crucial to note that generalizations can be misleading or harmful. Not every woman is a master manipulator, just as not every man is a bumbling oaf when it comes to social influence. We are addressing tendencies observed in psychological and cultural studies, not prescriptive truths about every individual. Certainly, men also engage in manipulation, sometimes overtly, like Machiavellian political moves, or subtly, like gaslighting a partner. In some cases, men can be equally skilled at reading social cues and influencing outcomes. The difference is that women have historically needed subtlety more, refining it as both a survival mechanism and a means of advancement in a patriarchal framework. If women excel at manipulation, is that necessarily a good thing for society? Some argue that it fosters mistrust, undermines genuine communication, and perpetuates hidden hierarchies. Others maintain that manipulation, used ethically, is merely a form of social navigation, an advanced skill in reading and responding to group dynamics. For women who find themselves skilled in subtle influence, self-awareness is key. Understanding when you're crossing the line from gentle persuasion to unhealthy manipulation can prevent ethical pitfalls. A little strategic influence can be beneficial, but deception or harm to others can corrode trust and personal integrity. The same empathy that fuels effective manipulation can be harnessed for positive leadership and genuine connection. Emotional intelligence allows women and men to navigate tough conversations, unify diverse groups, and create supportive communities. In other words, the skill set behind manipulation can also drive deep compassion and collaborative success if guided by the right intentions. Picture a busy marketing firm. The CEO, a woman in her early 40s, must unify her team and outdo a fierce competitor's product launch. She has no time for petty conflicts. Yet, her workforce is rife with tension. Rather than issuing an executive mandate, she calls individuals into her office, listens attentively to their frustrations, mirrors their emotions, and gently nudges them toward constructive solutions. She leverages each person's strengths, occasionally giving them a sense that the final strategy was their idea all along. Days later, the team is aligned, morale is high, and a cohesive plan emerges. Some might call it inspiring leadership. Others might label it manipulation, coaxing each employee by massaging their egos, downplaying her own authority, and playing one subtle angle against another. From a purely moral standpoint, was it right or wrong? The end result is success for the company, job security for the employees, and a satisfied client. This scenario encapsulates how the line between manipulation and motivational leadership is often blurred, particularly when subtlety, empathy, and keen social perception intersect. In the style of the best rhetorical arcs, let's approach the grand conclusion with a few pointed questions. Is manipulation by women inherently unstoppable, or does it reflect deeper truths about social interaction? Could it be that women's superior manipulation is really just superior communication, harnessing empathy and social awareness in a complex world? When we look at the entire tapestry, biology, cultural history, psychological research, and anecdotal accounts, a nuanced picture emerges. 1. Women's manipulation skills are often grounded in empathy and social intelligence, historically honed due to societal constraints. 2. These skills can be wielded for good or ill depending on the motives behind them. 3. The success of such manipulation arises from an advanced understanding of emotions, subtlety, and the unspoken codes that govern human interaction. 4. All humans manipulate. Women might just do it more gracefully because they've had to be creative and resourceful in systems where direct power was rarely an option. So, is it truly better manipulation? Or is it a more refined form of influence that centuries of social conditioning and possible biological proclivities have endowed? Perhaps it's both. Any form of power, manipulation can be used ethically or unethically. The real distinction lies in self-awareness and moral responsibility. Let's turn the microscope on ourselves for a moment. How many relationships, professional or personal, involve subtle forms of influence? Are we fully aware of when we're being manipulated, or when we ourselves are employing manipulative tactics to get what we want? Here are some final takeaways. Recognize empathetic influence. If someone seems unusually adept at reading your emotions, ask yourself if their actions serve mutual benefit or a hidden agenda. Set boundaries. Understanding your own emotional triggers and vulnerabilities can guard against unwanted manipulation. Leverage these insights positively. For women who naturally excel at reading social cues and guiding conversations, reflect on how to direct these skills constructively. Aim for win-win outcomes, not zero-sum games. Cultivate honesty. Even gentle, well-intentioned manipulation can erode trust if discovered. Transparency and open communication preserve respect in the long run. At our opening gala event, you saw a woman commanding a circle of fascinated onlookers with little more than a soft voice and a well-timed smile. Was she cunningly weaving a tapestry of illusions, or was she simply forging meaningful connections through empathy and insight? Maybe it was both. This journey into the question, why are women better at manipulation, illuminates how historical constraints, evolutionary pressure, cultural roles, and psychological tendencies can converge to produce a remarkable set of interpersonal skills. Whether utilized for personal gain, group cohesion, or even altruistic ends. These methods highlight the transformative power of emotional intelligence in human society. Ultimately, manipulation, like all forms of influence, exists on a moral spectrum. It can be a force for good, guiding teams toward collective achievements and healing emotional rifts, or a darker tool of deceit that sows discord and breeds resentment. The deciding factor lies in the intention behind the manipulation and the ethical framework of the manipulator. So, as you step back into the broader world, armed with a deeper understanding of how and why women might excel at subtle influence, take a moment to reflect. We all live in a fabric of quiet negotiations, covert appeals, and intricate emotional interplay. Appreciating the artistry behind these everyday manipulations doesn't just shed light on female prowess. It also offers a mirror for our own methods of influence and persuasion. The final revelation is not that women are manipulative by default, but that they've honed a skill set woven from empathy, cultural necessity, and psychological nuance. A skill set that, when combined with self-awareness and ethical principles, can truly reshape the world around us. And perhaps that is the greatest power of all, the power to guide, to heal, to inspire, without ever resorting to the heavy-handed tactics we so often associate with traditional authority. When manipulation transcends mere self-interest and transforms into enlightened leadership, it becomes something else entirely, something that can help us, individually and collectively, reach higher planes of understanding and cooperation.